purpose of the meditation is to prepare each one of us individually, to prepare the space here at Sophie's Grill and Bar, and to set the container so that our eyes, ears, and hearts can be open to whatever we need to hear, see, experience. So I invite you at this point to just settle in to wherever you are. You can close your eyes if that feels good, a soft gaze, whatever helps you cut out the outer wall of stimulation. Turn inside to your heart, to that center of being. And I'm going to paraphrase Carolyn Mays today when she talks about the analogy of a high-rise building. That if we're in the basement and we're looking out, there is nothing to see. It's just me, and I think that's all there is. I go up to the next floor, and suddenly there might even be people on the outside. There are people I'm more connected with. But I may say there are no trees. There's no grass. And then I move upwards. In the analogy of moving upwards in consciousness. And as I move up floors, I see that there are trees, there are lots of people out there, that all are connected, that all are one. And by the time I get to the top floor and have an amazing view, I see that the world is endless, that all below me, all around me is one, and I am one with all sentient beings. So I invite you to move out of the basement, up to the first floor, and keep going until you reach the top floor of consciousness. Let who you are, your name, your bank account, all of that fall away. And just become one with all that is. Experience the internal peace, the internal view. So we'll get quiet for another 2 minutes. So holding on in your heart and your mind's eye to that amazing view from the upper floor. Knowing that we are all one. God is all there is. God is in everything, every square inch of this. I invite you just to take a deep breath. And I want to thank you for being part of our meditation ceremony this morning. It does help prepare each one of us and the space and the continuum with your consciousness. So the service will resume in 45 minutes. I'm sorry, at 10:45, and we will see you then.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living and our Sunday celebration service. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Dusty Rippelmeyer, and I have the privilege and the honor of being the spiritual director of this amazing community. We are part of a larger organization called Centers for Spiritual Living, and we believe in one God, a God that is within us and surrounding us, that is everywhere at all times in its fullness and in its wholeness, a benevolent, loving God who is always ready, willing, and able to give us the kingdom of heaven on earth. We believe that this power and presence is the creative force back of everything that there is, seen and unseen. And we know that because we were created in its image and likeness, that we too are creative, that we create the experiences of our lives. And for me, that's the good news, because if you don't like your current experience, then you are the one, I am the one that has the ability to recreate, to change it, to change our thinking, to change our beliefs, to change our feelings, to change our actions, and thereby change the experiences that we're having. We are so grateful for you joining us this morning. We are uh, really a community that is very open and welcoming, and we're very glad that you've decided to join us today. We, for all of you who have been coming to our center, who have been attending our classes or our workshops, our special events, um, and for those of you who are visiting for the very first time, we see you. We know who you really are. We appreciate you. We cherish you. And we love you. So thank you again for joining us this morning. Speaking of thank yous, thank you very much to one of our licensed spiritual practitioners, Marianne Hardy, who facilitated the meditation today. I have a couple of announcements that I wanted to do, and they are they're both actually around Thanksgiving. So the invitation is to join us for a very special Thanksgiving Eve concert. The Leadership Council and I would love to invite you to an event that is actually celebrating and thanking and appreciating each and every single one of you. And we're doing that because we are really acutely aware of your uh, dedication, your devotion, and your love to this center, and for continuing to hang in there and to generously support us with your time, talent, and treasure over the last couple of years. We continue to be a thriving community because of each and every single one of you, and we are very grateful. And because of that, we decided to hold a concert. So on Wednesday evening, November 24th, from 7 o'clock until 8:30, we are going to serenade you with 3 amazing musicians. Please come and join us as Sandy Hemingway, Amy Steinberg, and Cindy Johnson revel us with their music and their inspiration. I'm very excited. It's the first time we've had the 3 of them together for a very long time, and I just hope that you'll all choose to join us for this event, actually honoring all of you. So thank you. Then on Thursday, the actual Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, I will be hosting a sacred moment of meditation from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Zoom. I will speak a little bit about the magic of gratitude, facilitate a meditation, open up the Zoom room for everyone in what I call the Hollywood Squares to actually speak what their gratitude about into the space, and then give a prayer of gratitude to the universe on behalf of all of us, individually and collectively, as the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. So we will be sending out links for not only the concert, but also for the Zoom meditation. Please consider joining us for one or both of these events surrounding Thanksgiving. Please now welcome me as we welcome Marianne Hardy back to the podium.
Good morning again. Our theme for the month of November is Breathe in the View. Rev Dusty's talk title today is The View from Here. Today's flower dedication is from Rebecca Fowles and is dedicated to her brother, Roger. In honor of the passing of her youngest brother, Roger, around this time, 6 years ago, on what would have been his 50th birthday, Rebecca has asked if we could take this time to collectively observe a moment of silence, to contemplate our vision of a world that works for everyone. This could be the big world, as in our planet and all the inhabitants, or your own little world, which is invariably a part of the whole. Knowing that our vision can seem like a big ask, with many of the details of that vision yet to unfold, the invitation is to skip past the how we get there and to focus instead on the end result. Take a moment, here and now, to begin to embody the feeling tone of a world that truly works for everyone. Thank you. Love, Rebecca. And now, if we will take that moment of silence and inhabit that world that works for everyone, we'll just get quiet. As tempting as it is to stay in that world, I'm now going to read our community's purpose statement, which is our reason for being here. Our purpose is to inspire, educate, and empower individuals to experience themselves as unique and individualized expressions of God, the love intelligence that governs the universe. We are committed to not merely a theoretical understanding of our oneness and unity with God, but to consciously practice this truth in our everyday lives. Through celebration, service, study, and fellowship, we are committed to the transformation of our personal lives and to being a powerful and beneficial presence on the planet. With the energy of unconditional love, simply, we are here for God. All right, so I again invite you to turn within, open your hearts and minds, what we're going to experience and hear next, and just let the sound of the crystal bowls wash over you.
So if you can now return to yourself, return to your circumstances and situation. My name is Carol Cross. I am another practitioner here at TCSL, and I am delighted to get to be the first practitioner for this first service in November. November is a month of gratitude and abundance and welcoming the harvest, where we get to collect the fruits of our labor from the past 10 months. So I'm glad to be in this journey with you. So I'd like to invite Sandy Hemingway to come up and join me for one of my favorite highlights of the service, our Blessings of All Faiths. The Triangle Center for Spiritual Living is the diversity and threads of truth that run through all spiritual paths, as represented by this ceremony. Christianity is the path of Christ consciousness, love, and forgiveness. Buddhism is the path of compassion and understanding. Judaism is the ethical path of living by sacred law. Baha'i is the path of unity and peace. Islam is the path of submission to the will of God, the highest calling. Confucianism is the path of deliberate tradition. Taoism is the natural way, the path of ultimate reality. Native American practice and shamanic traditions are the paths of primal spirituality. Shintoism is the path of tribal ancestry. Hinduism is the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. Science of mind and spirit is the path of the divine principle of love and law. And the heart represents that one heart, the one love that resides at the center of all people and all beings everywhere, with no exceptions. May peace prevail on earth through the followers of all paths. And so it is. Thank you, Sandy. All right, well, I ask you to join me in closing your outer eyes. As much as I love looking at all the beautiful faces, I love even more coming within and seeing in my mind's eye that fountain, the fountain of unconditional love, the fountain of peace, the fountain of divine wisdom, the fountain of joy, serenity, connection, oneness. I know that that fountain fills me up, every atom within me, and flows out and connects with all the other fountains, the fountains in this room, the fountains on the other side of the computer, the fountain that is each and every one of us, human, non-human. We are all just sources of the one that we call spirit, God, love. So I always feel so good when I stop and make that connection. So I say a word of blessing on everybody's participation today. Blessings on the volunteers who come and set up the space and collect the money and return the space to a restaurant after our services. I say a word of blessing on Heather, whose expertise is vast, but heart and commitment to service is even vaster. I say a word of blessing on Marianne for just the fantastic consciousness of peace and connection that she established first through her meditation and continues to embody throughout this entire service. I say a word of blessing on Sandy Hemingway, knowing that his music will transport us from knowing things in our mind to feeling them in our heart. I say a word of blessing on Reverend Dusty, who will bring her huge fountain to the podium today and will be overflowing with not only her love and her commitment, but her divine wisdom and inspiration. And most of all, I say a word of blessing to each and every one of you participating in this service, all the ones that you don't see on the camera, because this is an energetic contract we have with each other. Everyone participates, everybody's fountain is flowing to create the great giant whirlpool of wisdom that takes place today. So, knowing that we are all in that place, I declare today is a good God day. And I ask you to affirm that for yourself and for our community with our words, and so it is. All right. Oof, I'm excited. All right. Our reading for today is from Douglas Abram. And he says, a healthy perspective is the foundation of joy and happiness, because the way we see the world is the way we experience the world. Changing the way we see the world, in turn, changes the way we feel and the way we act, which changes the world itself. Or, as the Buddha says, with our mind, we create our own world. So, I know I can't wait to hear Reverend Dusty's talk. But before that, we have our dear friend and unbelievably talented musician, Sandy Hemingway, who's going to get us in the right space for Miss Dusty's World. So thank you. Welcome, Sandy.
The world. It's called Sunshine Within the Heart. Every day is new. The stars all decide to hide. Clouds may have struck the view. Still the sun will rise. Whenever the sun is shining, we think it allows us to see what hidden behind in the light the stars still gleam. Appearances can be deceiving. Starlight can only be seen in the dark. Living the truth means believing in sunshine within the heart. Sunshine within the heart. Just because we cannot see doesn't mean it is not there. When life is darkest, look within to find the spark. Sunshine within the heart. Every night we dream, first we must close our eyes. Blinded we then can see movies in our mind. Wherever we go in dreaming, vanishes when we arrive. A road of our own creation in our mind. Reality can be deceiving. Dreaming can only be done in the dark. Living the truth means believing. Sunshine within the heart. Sunshine within the heart.
So, as Marianne said earlier, my talk title today is The View from Here. Now, to view is to look at something, to have the ability to see something or to be seen from a particular place, such as a panorama or a beautiful nature or a vista. It can be the visual appearance or an image of something looked at in a particular way, such as an aerial view of that same panorama or that same vista. In a very different vein, it can also mean to regard something in a particular light or from a particular attitude, an opinion or a belief or an idea or a judgment. Or it can be a particular way of considering or understanding something, such as a perspective or an outlook, an attitude, a feeling, a slant, a stance, a posture, a standpoint, an approach, or a mental image. If that describes the view, then what then or where is here? Here is not just as simple as being where we are. Here can be many different places and spaces. Here can be many different contexts and perspectives, all of them very capable of really changing the view. Max Planck, one of the winners of the Nobel Prize in Physics, says when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So today we explore the view from here. How many people have ever seen the movie Love Happens with Aaron Eckhart and Jennifer Aniston? Yes, our movie buff here, Edward Krupa. Seen every movie that was ever made. The movie is about a widower who writes a book. The book is about coping with loss. And writing that book and selling zillions of copies of that book turns him into a bit of a self-help guru. In the movie, he falls for the hotel florist, played, of course, by Jennifer Aniston, where his seminar is being given, only to learn that he hasn't truly yet confronted his own feelings about his wife's passing. Burke, played by Aaron Eckhart, is a best-selling author and a motivational speaker. His wife died in a car accident about 3 years before we meet him in the movie. He's in Seattle to lead a week-long workshop about healing and to negotiate a really multi-million-dollar media deal. But something's amiss. Something's amiss. He's a closet drinker. He won't ride in an elevator. His mood swings. He's estranged from his wife's father, and he's very much alone. Actually, not everything is as it seems. One of the first things that Burke does in his workshop is to take the participants out into the streets directly outside of the hotel, where he then has them in a group stand in the middle of the street. Now, as you can imagine, cars are honking and people are screaming at them to get out of the way. But he very calmly asks them, all the people the participants in the group, to describe the view. And the group names everything that they could see, everything that they can hear, everything that they can smell, everything that they felt from that particular view. Then Burke takes that same group of participants up to the rooftop of the hotel. And he once again asks them to describe everything that they see. They were now able to describe the beautiful skylines of Seattle with the Space Needle and the rivers and the mountains off in the distance. They were able to describe a peaceful, serene, and gentle energy that surrounded them from that particular here. Burke's point is that they have not changed venue. All they did was simply change their perspective at that same location. They changed their perspective, which ended up being a very, very, very important step in their healing. Eric Butterworth says, "It is a powerful insight to live by. Always get the view from the top. Before you react in negativity to people, conditions, or things, take a moment to lift up your eyes unto the hills. Contemplate all the challenging experiences from the highest possible point of view. Regardless of the appearances or conflicts or limitations, see all things from the awareness of the allness of life and the ever-present presence of substance. From the view from the top, you will see things creatively, leading to an attitude that is constructive and optimistic." Sounds wonderful. Another example of getting a view from the top comes to us from 1968. Apollo 8 was the first crewed spaceship, crewed C-R-E-W, with human beings on board. Not crewed, it was not crewed, but crewed spacecraft to leave the Earth's orbit. And it was the first crewed human spacecraft to reach the moon, which the crew orbited without landing and then returned safely back to Earth. Now, the crew consisted of Bill Anders, Frank Borman, and Jim Lovell. It was also the very first time that cameras were turned around in a live feed back to Earth. The very first time. Up until that point, no human being had ever seen our planet from that far out in space. The iconic Earthrise image, as it was called, you can probably see it in your mind's eye, that blue-looking globe. It was snapped by astronaut Bill Anders, and the image shows the Earth peeking out from beyond the lunar surface. And that image, that moment, was life-changing for people, even those people that simply viewed it from home. One of the astronauts on the mission said, "When we originally went to the moon, our total focus was on the moon. We weren't thinking about looking back at the Earth. But now that we've done it, that may have been the most important reason that we went." After seeing the planet hanging in the void, literally hanging in the void for the very first time, they described a cognitive shift in their awareness. This state of mental clarity was called the overview effect. And it was stated that that happens when we are so far flung away from Earth that we become totally overwhelmed and awed by the fragility and the unity of life on the planet. It's the uncanny sense of understanding the big picture and of feeling connected to and yet bigger than the intricate processes that are unfolding day after day after day on the Earth. Bigger than and yet connected to. Author Frank White first coined the term the overview effect when he was flying in an airplane across the country. After looking out the window, he thought, anyone living in a space settlement will always have an overview. They will see things that we know, but that we don't experience. which is that the earth is one system. We are all part of that system, and there is a certain unity and coherence to it all. So from space, right, from space, everything looks different. From that really higher view, national boundaries vanish, and the conflicts that divide people become less important. Part of this realization is that we are all traveling together on the planet, and that if we were to look at the world day after day after day from that perspective, then we would see that anything and everything is possible. Jeff Bezos recently said when he returned from his trip into space, "I was told seeing the Earth from space changes the lens from which you view the world. But I was not prepared for just how much that would be true." Do you remember the first time that you ever peered at the heavens through a telescope? Suddenly, everything that was enormous seemed to be so small. Everything that was so far away seemed so close and so personal. On the other hand, do you recall the first time you ever looked through a microscope? You may have been looking at a piece of a plant or some microorganism or something, but the purpose of using the microscope was to make something that was so very tiny appear large. Now, I believe that for most of us, looking through a microscope at something that we would not otherwise see, or looking at something through a telescope that it appears so far away but now appears so close, always, both of them always bring a sense of awe and wonderment to whatever it is that we're doing. Megan Kennedy, a professor at Florida State University, received a National Endowment for the Humanities grant that allowed her to research how the microscope influenced science, culture, and religion in the 19th century. Now, while faith and science often seem like opponents, Kennedy had found that some people in the 19th century saw the microscope and its revelations as God-given. Kennedy became interested in microscopes when she studied century-old medical books, and when she was an undergraduate. And what she noticed about those books was some very interesting language around the microscope. Language that described the microscope as a window that gives us access into God's creation. Not something where science and religion is an opponent, but that they're working together. An opportunity to give us a window into God's creation. For example, in 1852, a man named Dick Thomas wrote a book called The Telescope and the Microscope. In it, he said, every part of creation demands our attention and proclaims the power and the wisdom of the Creator. It seems almost trite and needless to say that the discoveries which we have been considering equal with those of telescopes demonstrate the existence of God and teach us lessons of confidence in Him by showing us that there is nothing too minute for His notice or too humble for His care. In the same vein, Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, which, for those of you who might not know, falls under the same umbrella of New Thought that Science of Mind falls under. So she teaches, or Christian Science teaches, that spirit or God is all in all. Very similar to what we teach, yes. Therefore, spirit must be the only reality, the only presence, and the only power. Thus, matter is stripped of its pretensions of ever having been real, of ever having filled any space, or of ever yielding any power. Using the microscope of spirit, we find that our daily existence is no longer just a succession of human experiences, but really literally we find that our daily experience is a perpetual unfoldment of spiritual ideas, spiritual experiences. The daily acceptance and utilization of these spiritual ideas will not only bless us with health, happiness, harmony, and abundance, but will also allow us to bless others. Using a regular microscope, we can be singularly focused. Singularly focused and know that everything is made up of the same substance. Just that really there is just multiple different, unique, individualized combinations of the only substance there is, the power and presence of God. When we remember this view, our lives will transform and transcend the world of form. This awareness is a very important part of our healing, both individually and collectively. Now, what I believe is that the view is all just a matter of perspective. It's all just a matter of our perspective. That here is where we are looking from, the context from which we live our lives. So it might be geographical, but it also might be emotional or mental. Perspective is how we see the world, our own reality. It's unique to us and to us alone. There are between 7.7 and 7.8 billion people in the world today. And each and every single one of us thinks and feels and acts in different ways. Each of us has different thoughts and different beliefs and different reasons for thinking or believing them. Now, sure, there are some people that we could get connected with that have similar viewpoints, similar perspectives. That's why we're able to gather around any particular cause together. But at our core, we have different viewpoints, different perspectives, and we do different things for different reasons. One day, a group of 3 blind men who were traveling together came upon an elephant. The men, who had never encountered an elephant before, were curious about the creature, and they were unsure of what to make of it. So in an effort to learn more about the beast, they reached their hands out to touch it. Now, the first man landed on the elephant's trunk, and he declared, "An elephant must be like a large snake." And the second man put out his hand, and he felt the creature's ear. And he replied, no, the elephant is more like a big fan." And the third man placed his hands on the animal's side, and he said, "No, you're both wrong. An elephant is actually like a wall." Unsurprisingly, the 3 men devolved into a disagreement. into an argument, with each man insisting, really insisting, their perspective was correct. Each one was operating under the presumption that the portion of the he had felt represented the entirety, the whole of the elephant. Of course, each one was correct in some way, but each one was also incorrect in other ways. They each held a piece of the puzzle, but without remaining open to each other's perspectives, right? Remember, I said they devolved into an argument. Without remaining open to each other's perspectives, they were unable to put it all together and to understand the full picture. Now, despite most of us having the benefit and the assistance of all 5 of our senses to aid us in interpreting the environment around us, we often fall into this same trap. We tend to project our partial perspectives and view it as the whole truth, relying on just that little sliver of our own experience to guide us. And as a result, we often make assumptions about the whole based entirely on just one part. Now, our perspective by definition is limited. Like viewing something from only one angle, our perspective embodies our own version of reality, our unique point of view. The problem is that instead of viewing our perspective for what it is, incomplete, we mistakenly believe that our sliver of understanding represents the whole story. And knowing that we have sometimes devolved into arguments, you can see where that leads us. Given that our perspective has limits and oftentimes is flawed, the underlying truth is that in order to discover anything, even approaching the whole truth, it's important for us to consider as many different perspectives as possible. That we need to learn to see beyond our own limited perspective and to allow others to enter into our purview. The invitation is to stay open to different perspectives, to widen view, to widen our here. Another thought that came up for me around the view from here was the quote by Einstein. There are only 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. For me, this speaks to the context that we are living our lives from. Are we optimistic or are we pessimistic? Do we believe that the glass is half full or do we believe that the glass is half empty? There were once 2 men, both seriously ill, who were sharing a room in a large hospital. It was a small room, and it had only one window that looked out onto the world outside of the hospital. One of the men, as part of his treatment, was allowed to sit up in his bed for an hour every afternoon. His bed was next to the window. But the other man had to spend his entire day flat on his back lying in bed. Every afternoon, when the man next to the window was propped up for his hour, he would pass the time away by describing what he could see outside. So the window apparently overlooked a park where there was a lake. And he spoke quite often about the ducks and the swans on the lake, about the children that were playing along its banks, and about lovers walking arm in arm underneath the trees. He said that there were flowers, stretches of grass, games of softball, and people walking their dogs. He said that beyond that scene, there was a view of the city skyline. The man on his back would listen, begrudgingly at first, to the other man describe all of this. He heard how a child nearly fell into the lake, how beautiful the girls were in their summer dresses. The fellow looking out the window enjoyed it all. And day by day, he was feeling better. The reclining man didn't want to hear it at first, but after days and then weeks of the narrative, he too began to feel better and thought about the day when he would be able to sit up and look out that window. One day, the man beside the window had recovered enough that he was able to go back home. And the first thing that the remaining man did was ask to be moved to the bed that was beside the window. He thought that if he too could just look out that window at all the beauty that was out there, that he too would heal enough to be able to go home. So they moved him when he asked to be moved. So they moved him and they tucked him in and they made him comfortable. And the minute they left the room, he mustered up enough strength to prop himself out and look out that window. It faced a blank wall. Wayne Dyer, in his book, Staying on the Path, said, "Everything in your life is a miracle to be cherished. A grain of sand, a bee on a flower, a sailboat, a cup of coffee, a wet diaper, a caterpillar are all miracles. When you learn to view life and everything in it as a miracle, you soon see that complaining is a waste of the miracle that you are." One last idea that came to me is that as we walk our spiritual path, we are on this continuous upward spiral of evolution. Continuous upward spiral. And in our upward spiraling, we often face the same or similar challenges along the way. Right? So you have this challenge down here. At some point in time, right, going up that spiral, you're going to look over the edge of that spiral and you're going to see that same challenge. Maybe having a different name or a different hairstyle or a different boss or whatever, but you see that same or a similar kind of challenge as you go up that spiral. But as we evolve, we face those challenges from a higher place on that spiral. And because of that, we are able to view that same situation from a higher place in consciousness. The view from this higher here is very different from the first time we experienced that challenge from that lower here. The higher we lift our consciousness, the clearer we can see the truth of any situation that we are going through. From a higher state of consciousness, we can be in the world but not of it. A higher state of consciousness that recognizes and embodies the microscopic view at the same time. Both can exist. Both do exist. A view in which the world of form fades away, and what is left is a deep awareness of the oneness of all life. That we are more alike than we are different. The invitation is to be aware of our perspective and be willing to be aware of the perspective of other people in life. Right? To be aware of our underlying context and how it affects our view. The bottom line is that we have a choice in our here. We have a choice in our here, and that choice can make all of the difference in our view and ultimately in our lives and the lives of those around us. And so it is. So it is. So I invite everyone to turn within, please, to allow ourselves to close our outer eyes and to turn our attention and intention inward to the center of our being, to that spark of the divine, that delicious space and place that is the microscopic view of spirit. That place where we truly know that we are one. That place where we truly know that we are more alike than we are different. That place where we truly know that each and everything that we can see and cannot see is made out of the same substance, the divine. And I know that I'm one with it. I know that it is that which created me out of itself. I too am part and parcel of that same divine substance, created in its image and likeness. And just as I know that this is true for me, I know that it is true for each and every person that is here today with us at Sophie's. Everyone that is watching us live online, everyone that will watch this at some later point in time, every sentient on the planet, every sentient being on the planet, we are one with each other, one with life itself, one with the divine, can never be separate, truly. And it is from that place of unity that I speak these words about and for each and every one of us today, truly knowing that we are on that upward spiral of evolution. And that as we rise and travel that spiral, that we begin to notice our life from a higher and higher vantage point, that we begin to see with eyes that recognize the bigger picture, that truly know that there is more than meets the eye. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation, and there is that within us that knows that we are, can be, part of the world, but not of it. That we can choose to live our lives from a space and place, from a particular here that knows the whole truth, not just our little perspective, but the whole truth. That recognizes and invites in the perspective of others, knowing that together we can recognize the whole. Together we can know the truth of any situation. That we can see the world from that overview, from that bigger picture, and allow the boundaries to vanish. Allow the conflict to just dissipate into the dust from which it came. I claim ease and grace for each of us around living that kind of life, about being so connected to each other, and to being so aware of our connection to each other and our connection to the divine that really anything is possible. I'm so grateful to know this truth, so grateful to speak these words, so grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into that room. that law that flows the words in form even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and I release them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation. Letting go and letting God be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves, for each other, for the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, and for the world, simply by saying, and so it is. And so it is. Now is the time for our conscious giving. The for spiritual living is sustained by the giving of our time, talent, and treasure. This is the time every week when we offer financial support to assist this community to continue to be a beacon of light and love for ourselves and for others. Together we affirm the truth that today's offering lifts this spiritual community, prospers the one giving, and contributes to the experience of sufficiency on the planet. For those of you that might be tuning in for the first time, there are several ways that you can participate. And the first is to visit our website at www.trianglecsl.org. You can text the word give using the following number, 919-230-8445, or you can mail your gift to our office at PO Box 4062, Cary, North Carolina, 27519. So I invite you to place your hand on your heart with your gift or with an intention, and we'll say our offering affirmation in a call and response. I live in an abundant universe that blesses and prospers my life. I give with gratitude, knowing that God is my source. Gratitude, knowing that God is my source. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you all so very much. And now, please join me as I welcome the awesome, the incredible, the magnificent Sandy Hemingway.
Thank you. So my perspective has shifted recently in the job, and that definitely changes perspective. And this song is one that has spoken to me before. And a point in my life where things were changing, like genuinely. When my hands were empty, when my hope was gone, couldn't help wonder what I'd done wrong. Though my heart was broken, there's no need to despair. The vessel must be open, but something better there. Into my empty hand, gently pour new life for me. Yours is a perfect plan. Love settled down, meant to be. I understand. Read in my will. Forgive me when I doubt it, and sometimes I do. Consider giving up, 'cause I cannot see the truth. understand. Be in my thank you for my hand. Thank you.
Facing some challenge, facing some opportunity to shift, you are not alone. If you would like prayer over good, bad, indifferent, whatever, you can either go to our website at trianglecsl.org, and on the home page, there's a button in the upper right hand corner. You can click on that button and fill out the form, or you can just call or email Dusty or me or Marianne or Heather or any of the other practitioners. We want to be there with you in prayer. And so just reach out, and then you'll have this prayer dream team on your side saying the prayer with you. So, another thing that gave me goo heart to this today was Rebecca's beautiful flower dedication. And everyone else out there, if there's something you would like to dedicate flowers to, we would love to share that with our world. So if you would like to do a flower dedication, just contact Heather at info@trianglecsl.org or Reverend Dusty at dustyrippelmeyer.yahoo.com. Okay, so we've got a fresh, brand new set of affirmations full of that sparkly new energy. So I invite everybody to stand up, and I'm going to do this as a call and response, but remember, this is a world of energy, not words. So you got to put your heart into it, okay? So did I say it was a call and response? I'm going to say it go first, and then you repeat. Okay. I am a spiritual being having a spiritual experience in a spiritual world. My spiritual journey operates according to spiritual laws. Each point along my path has been integral in shaping who I am today. There is an exquisiteness and perfection to this divine order. As I turn away from appearances, I see every situation from a place of spiritual truth. As I lift my eyes to the highest view of life, I see the beauty and feel the grace. As I do so, my life abounds with love, peace, and joy. I am grateful for everything I am, everything I do, and everything I have. And so it is. So I ask you to turn within one last time. And I'm seeing that sunshine in my heart, that sunshine of love and beauty and abundance and joy and connection. I am so grateful for our time together today and our time together in the future. since time is all just sort of made up anyway. I know that a result of everyone's contributions today, that we all are seeing our lives from a higher perspective. And as each of us raises our spiritual vibration, we raise the spiritual vibration of each other and of the world. So I know today has taken me in new places, not only in my own life, not only in the lives of everyone who participated, but towards our goal of a world that works for everyone. So I am so grateful for everybody, everything. And knowing that this day has been transformative. So I just turn that transformation over to the world of law that always says yes, and ask you to join me in proclaiming this, and so it is.
Thank you all so very much for joining us today. Please consider popping in on Zoom on Wednesday evening for a very fun evening called An Evening with Ernest Holmes. We're going to look at him actually giving some talks. So please come and join us for that. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Have a magnificent week. I love you all. Take care.